Danny, we're going to have a conversation now about Atmos.
Okay.
Now, I know I'm a big fan of Atmos. I love the way Atmos sounds. You have stereo system here. We've had discussions in the past about you fitting an Atmos system, and I've said, it is possible in this room. It's very much possible. It's big enough room for Atmos. And you've point blank gone, we don't know. Now, what's your reasoning behind not wanting to fit an Atmos studio in here?
I've got various reasons. I'd say I don't want to say the main one, but one of the big reasons is this. Generally, the people that I know that benefit from listening in Atmos do not have a studio anywhere near like yours, where they've got speakers on everywhere, the ceilings, the walls, behind them, everywhere. The way they benefit is they've got Apple headphones, Air Maxes or AirPods. They've got them in their ears. They're at the gym. They happen to be listening on something like Apple Music, and they're getting that benefit of Apple Spatial, which they call it. So, seeing as though they are listening on headphones, I can do Atmos. I sometimes do get asked to do Atmos mixes, and the way I do it is I use Logic Pro, and Logic Pro has got Atmos, Apple Spatial in it, and you can get a perfectly good Apple Spatial Atmos mix. So my reasoning for not needing a proper Atmos studio is that surely I can just put on a pair of Apple AirPod Maxes, which I do have, and I can mix in Atmos on those headphones after I've done the stereo mix on my proper monitors, so I know I'm not messing with the mix, but I can do all the spatial around the head on my headphones, because I then know that the final consumer, is also wearing headphones. So what's the point of me mixing on something else?
It's a good argument. What I'd say in that regards is you can't truly understand how it sounds in Atmos through an Atmos system when using headphones. Now, your argument would be that they're using headphones, so they're hearing it how I'm hearing it, which is correct.
Yeah.
And that's a fair argument. However, the issue you have is a lot of the time, and I've heard some mixes that are done in headphones, and I'll play them back in an Atmos room, and it's like, why is that sound over there? Oh, but it sounds great in headphones. It's like, yeah, but what's it doing? What's it doing over there? Why is the bass on the back of the room? It's like, oh, yeah, but it sounds fine in headphones. And I guess it's only when you then deliver that and play that back in an Atmos situation, on an Atmos system, that you'll then realise these sorts of errors that are in those sorts of mixes. And if something sounds fine on headphones, but it doesn't sound fine on a full Atmos system, the definition of what we do as mastering engineers is we make it good for all platforms. And if you can't make it perfect for Atmos, but you can make it perfect for headphones, I'd argue that that's not mastering how it should be, because it should be played back correctly. Now, I'm not saying that yours have bass on the back of the room, but there's a lot of people that where they haven't experienced working in an Atmos room, where they then go and mix it on headphones, and they don't understand that certain things don't go at the back of the room. Certain things don't go on the ceiling. They might sound fine in headphones, but they don't sound fine in a true kind of Atmos setting. Now, the other thing is just because right now in 2025, not everybody has, like, let's for argument's sake say 5% of the industry have an Atmos system, and that's probably being generous, to be fair. An Atmos system to actually listen back to Atmos. Even that could be listening back at home on an Atmos system, which is just like a standard cinema kind of sound bar and a couple of speakers kind of thing. Or if it's a big system like what I've got. The thing with that is just because in 2025 it's not the standard and everybody doesn't have it, it could very much be the standard in 10 years' time. And if there's Atmos mixes out there that only sound good on headphones and don't sound good on an Atmos system, in 10 years' time, when nobody's listening to them necessarily like on headphones and they're all listening to them on these Atmos systems that become a lot more affordable, which is very much possible, I'd argue that, that's not good.
So I hear you. But in my particular case, and I remember this, and I'm sure you do too, when I first started experimenting with Atmos in here, and believe me, I have spent countless hours, days, and nights, because I'm the kind of person that always strives to get better, no matter how good other people say I am at mixing and mastering. I know, and I'm sure even you know, that we're always learning, always. And if I can get my stereo mixes sounding more immersive and 3D, I want that. I've had that dream of 3D mixing before it even came out. I've always thought that. So I spent countless hours. Now, when my first 2 or 3 mixes in Atmos that I did in here, I actually think I did stupidly put the bass at the back, even me, because, and as you say, you can't tell that that's bad in headphones at all.
No.
Now, but what I did, I remember at least 3-4 times coming to your studio, because our studios are quite near each other, and I came to your studio, and you were like, "Why have you put the bass at the back? And why have you done this? And why have you done that?" So
you could correct.
Yeah, so I could correct it, but now I know that's like a fundamental rule is, don't put the bass at the back, don't do this, don't do that, because I know what it sounded like. So
I'd like to say that should be quite obvious.
It should be obvious, but not to me. Not to me. I don't know. Nothing's obvious to me. But the fact is that the last 3 or 4 Atmos mixes I've done. Now I only do Atmos mixes if a client needs me to, or if I'm putting out a record, because I do a lot of production as well, and the label asks me for an Atmos mix. Then I've done that a few times. I used to come to you for that, but sometimes I don't.
I've got one.
Okay. Remember what you were going to say.
I've got one.
Remember what you're going to say. But Paul, here's the thing. So the last 3 or 4 Atmos mixes that I've done, I've learned by my mistakes.
Of course.
Yeah. And I've come to your studio and you've said, yeah, sounds great. It sounds absolutely great. So my argument is that because I'm very fortunate to know you and to be able to come to your studio and hear what I've done wrong or right, but because I've had that experience, now in the back of my mind, I know not to position stuff stupidly. And even you've said, yeah, sounds great, it's ready to go. And the labels have not rejected my Atmos mixes at all. It's been fine.
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
Now, 2 things I wanted to say.
Yeah.
The first one is, you're in a fortunate situation where you got to experience that. 99% of people don't get to experience a good Atmos room.
No.
And that's the problem. And that's why you hear so many bad Atmos mixes on headphones. Because the problem you have is there's a hell of a lot of guesswork because you physically don't have those speakers. So you've got to guess what it's going to... almost got to guess what it's going to sound like in Atmos. Now, I could guess. I could guess with a high proportion of accuracy because I'm so well in tune with what it sounds like.
You know
in Atmos.
what you put where.
Yeah, so I could use headphones and position things in almost perfectly where they should go in Atmos, and arguably I could do that with listening on stereo speakers, not having to use headphones, just because I know where a certain sound should go and where it's going to sound best. Now, the one thing I was going to say was when you mentioned earlier about record labels. Now, here's the thing with record labels. There's a lot of record labels, like more of the majors, they will reject based on it has to be done on a full Atmos system. There's you can't do it on headphones.
But how will they know?
Well, yeah.
They will know? Not necessarily.
They won't know.
If I do one, and I know where to position stuff now,
they won't know, but that is a criteria.
Right, okay.
So
I know that's right, because my son Alex, Universal said that and they stipulated that. That's true. Yeah.
But you could do one and then just be like, yeah, cool, yeah, it was done. It was done on
And I'll send a
Atmos
picture
system.
of your studio.
Yeah, but then I have to take credit for your Atmos master.
Oh yeah, you don't want that.
Yeah,
You don't want people to think you're better than you really are.
Oh yeah, yeah. Make sure the royalties come to me. Though.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, so I look. I know in an ideal world, everyone would have an Atmos system, but I know that we don't live in an ideal world, and Atmos systems are expensive.
Very.
Nick's system in Studio A, that was 60,000. My system in Studio B is around 48,000.
Wow.
It's a lot of money.
Why is Nick's more expensive than yours? He's got a smaller room.
His left and right speakers are 28,000.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Whereas mine are only 9, 10, 12, 15, 16.
Only.
Yeah.
Wow.
Whereas he's got his mains are
Yeah.
massive Ex Machina Arcturus.
Yeah.
Only ones in the world as well.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they're special. But that to 99.9% of people is mental.
Yeah.
Like,
including to me. I mean, like for me to put Atmos in here.
if you was to put Atmos in here, let me tell you how much it would cost. Because you've got Ex Machina pulsars already, right? It would cost you to put Atmos in here £16,000, £8,000 for 4 speakers, and another 8,000 for another 4 speakers. That would give you 4 speakers in your surround and 4 speakers in your ceiling, and then you'd need another 1 speaker for your centre speaker.
Right.
So you're talking probably a Ganymede. Which is the smaller pulsars, they're just a bit smaller. Stick one of them in your centre, and so you would be talking at an RRP probably about 20,000 to have a really good Ex Machina
But
system.
that's not including labour.
What labour?
Putting the speakers in.
Well, you'd get me to do it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but still going to pay you, even though you're my mate. I'll pay you a little bit.
Literally, you take me out for dinner.
pay you in food.
It's literally you put them up with Vesa mounts, so that they're really easy to put
so
up.
It's not too bad.
Yeah, they literally would just screw in.
Right.
And then it's running cables to them, which you just run across the ceiling. So you could stick it in this sort of room, and the one massive cost that there is, and this is a cost that I recommend anyone who's going to fit a Dolby Atmos system actually think about, is getting a Trinnov for room correction.
Because it was phased like crazy, wasn't it?
Well, you can set it up. You can set an Atmos system up and time align it yourself, and but nothing's as good as. I really don't. I hate going into studios
without a Trinnov.
Like
Atmos. What about for stereo?
No. For stereo, it's perfectly fine. Like you can get away with it. It obviously makes things better.
Right.
But in Atmos, you're 2 speakers, less phase.
Right.
There's less to time align. Whereas you're putting speakers on the back walls, on the ceilings. Everything's coming. There's audio coming from all sides. Now, the problem you have with when you pan from left to right is you're just going from there to there. There's very little in the way of phase, and you're panning into a phantom center. Whereas when you're panning around a room and you're picking this object up, moving it around a room, and I go into all sorts of studios, Atmos studios, and one of the telltale things is just pick a sound up and just move it around the room, and you'll move it around the room, the volume going, and then it's like phasing where it's hitting the phantom center, and it's like, oh my god, this room is terrible.
That being said, though, if something's further away from you, it would go quieter.
Yeah, but it shouldn't. Why should it go quieter?
Because in real life, if I were to walk around that room, I would be slightly quieter.
No, but you wouldn't want that. You'd want it to. You want if you closed your eyes.
Yeah.
And so then when you're listening in headphones, when you pan it round to the back, does it get quieter?
No.
So why would you want it to do it with
I
a
wouldn't
system?
Want it to.
So when you've got your Atmos system set up, pick an object up and just move it around your head, like it's literally around your head, and it should literally go around your head like that, really natural, and just sound identical all the way round.
Yeah.
but what you'll find is some people have their back speakers really quiet. They'll be much too quiet. It'll get to there, it'll go down in volume, comes around there, down in volume, and you'll get this kind of phase here where it's in between two speakers.
Okay.
And there's all sorts of issues in Atmos. So when I talk about having like a perfect room, it's so important.
So your Trinov, apart from sorting out phase issues, what else is it useful for?
Well, it'll sort out the phase.
Yeah.
It'll also sort the volume for each of the speakers.
Right.
So the volume of each speaker is exactly the same.
Yeah.
So you get that seamless movement around the room. So
Yeah.
you're not going down in volume as you go to one speaker and then down there. And then each of the speakers are the acoustics on them. So you've got, I think it's acoustics button on it. So you basically, all the EQ for each speaker is tuned. So they all sound the same. So you get no differences. As you move around that room, you don't get a difference.
Right.
So
It's consistent.
the other benefit is I've got that sitting and standing desk. So if I stand up, I change my sweet spot. So
But it will sound the same because of the Trinov. It takes it into consideration.
So if I move my desk up and I stand up,
You press the...
so I press a different preset. Now my preset's recorded with the sweet spot here rather than the sweet spot down there in the sitting position. So that's massively beneficial.
The other thing is, I know you just said earlier that the size of my room's enough, but I also remember you saying a couple of years ago that
a specification.
Dolby's it's not big enough.
So things have changed.
Oh.
Back then, when I was fitting my system, it was really like they had this thing where, you know, you were getting certified and all this. It meant absolutely nothing. But it's nice to be certified. Part of the criteria of being certified was having the correct room dimensions and they had a very kind of strict kind of set of rules in place. And slowly more and more people are getting into Atmos and the rules have just been thrown out the window.
Oh, really?
But thankfully, you know, I was in early with Atmos, and I genuinely, you know, got certified, had people in, measured everything, and took the kind of room measurements, everything, and certified the room, and basically said, yeah, this is top notch. Happy with this room, and then gave me a plaque.
Right.
So I've got a nice plaque
Yeah.
that says I'm Dolby Atmos certified. It means absolutely nothing.
No.
The plaque means nothing, but it's nice.
Yeah.
It means nothing now. It kind of did mean something then, but it's like
Are they not issuing those plaques anymore?
No.
Then? Right. Interesting.
yeah, I
I
think
suppose they're limiting themselves if they do that.
well, it's really good. It's really good in a way that, you know, only select people have them. Because if you really wanted to, you could say, well, I've got a plaque. Have you got a plaque? And you go, no, I haven't got a plaque. And the only reason you ain't got a plaque is because you didn't do it early enough.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the only reason.
Yeah.
And they're not issuing these plaques anymore because they basically said that it would have just got ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, it went from, 30 people who had Atmos studios in, let's say, the UK
Yeah.
over a period of a year to now... there was loads of people because it becomes so popular. And then it's like, then you've got studios which don't have Atmos systems, just have stereo speakers. It's like, well, we want a plaque as well. It's like, no, you can't have a plaque.
Yeah.
So it kind of
You're the OG.
yeah, and that's nice because I'll keep that plaque forever and I will display it because although it don't mean nothing really. It means something to me. I'm glad I've got it.
No, I get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And right, so I have another question, obviously on Atmos as well. Now, I know that obviously you do a lot of stereo mixes for people, and I assume a lot of your clients don't require Atmos masters. Would I be correct in saying that? Not everyone.
Yeah, no, not everyone. I'd say it's half and half.
Half and half. Okay. So, would you personally begin? Let's say a client did want Atmos and stereo; they wanted both.
Yeah.
Would you start your mixing from scratch in Atmos, get the Atmos mix done for them, and then do a binaural stereo fold down for their stereo mix? Or would you mix on your 2 stereo speakers first, get your stereo mix done, and then export those stems and then do your Atmos afterwards?
So I've changed. I've flip-flopped on this many times.
Yeah.
Always in the pursuit to find what the best sound possible. Always trying to find what the best sound is and how to get that best sound. Now, I've settled on something now, which and it's partly due to the fact I'm using a lot of analog gear in stereo. And it could be done. You can use all stereo analog gear because they're stereo objects at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That you're working with. But I've found still, even though Atmos is much more popular,
Yes.
stereo is still the primary format. I very much feel that, even though Atmos does in many ways sound better, and I'd still say stereo is the primary format. So I will mix in stereo. I can then take that stereo mix,
Yes.
and from that stereo mix, I then take that into a new session,
Right.
and I turn that into Atmos.
So you're
And
literally, are you exporting your? How are you doing this?
So I'm directly exporting the stems into a new session,
Right.
And then from that new session, that's where I'm moving, because then I've got all my stems. My stems are processed; they're all ready.
Right.
I can then move everything around, put it where I want it, do any panning I want to do, move any objects with automation that I want to do. It's all in a separate session, but ultimately, that stereo mix is perfect. That stereo mix is perfect. It's signed off. And the client's happy, never to be returned to, hopefully.
Right.
So then, once I've got that, I can then take that into what I consider as not Atmos mixing, but more Atmos mastering. I can then perform all the panning. I can then do any of the automation. I can then put the master over it. Now, one thing not to ask me, and your mouth opened because you were going to ask me there,
Go on.
is do not ask me
How you do it?
how I do the Atmos mastering.
Yeah.
Or because you do know, and B, you know I don't want to tell anyone, because this is a key thing about my Atmos and the way that I work with Atmos that makes mine sound so much superior to everyone else's.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's something I very much want to keep a secret.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And I could see your mouth. You were going to ask that.
You know me too well.
You literally, your mouth just went. You were about to say it. No.
So in that case, let me ask you something else. So, okay, I'll tell you what I do want to ask you though about binaural stereo fold downs. So you just said to me now that you do your stereo mix first, and I guess you master that stereo mix in terms of mastering, you know, limiting and everything. Hopefully never to be returned is what you just said. You could just lift it with you. You're so good at mastering, but you can't open the water. And so
it's dodgy. Look at that.
I know. Tell me about it. I spilled half of it on me before. Look, they're cheap. That's why. It's like Aldi or something. Back to this. So right. So you told me you do your stereo and you don't really want to return to that.
Yeah.
You then,
ideally it can be returned.
Of course, yeah. And then you do your Atmos mix and you do your Atmos master. Now, I know that you can, and I know that you did do this at the beginning.
Yeah.
You can, once they're happy with the Atmos master, you can do what you call a binaural, fold down.
Yeah.
So they're essentially getting what feels like and sort of looks like a stereo mix.
Yeah.
But that stereo mix, particularly when they listen on headphones, they get the feeling of things still going around their head. Mm-hmm. Now, would that not make an even better stereo mix than the one that you were happy with?
Right.
Before?
See, now it can be done.
Yeah.
And we've done it a lot.
Yeah.
And it is doable and it does sound great. However, the problem with it is there's a lot of variables in the sense of that it cannot sound great. So it's not foolproof in the sense of that it's not 100% every single time. certain sounds you have to, basically the issue with that is certain sounds can have the binaural information added to them, certain sounds can't. Now you know yourself, vocals can't add,
No,
because
it makes them sound wispy and weird.
drums, hi-hats, anything with a high frequency is really bad to have. Bass as well, bass and
that's what I think.
No. So, but anything with a high frequency, guitars, pianos, beautiful. They sound great.
You say beautiful, and I agree. I mean, my very, very first Atmos mix that I did, I had a piano, for example, and strings. That's all it was. Vocals, piano, and strings. And I had the piano out there, and the strings out there, a little bit up and behind. Again, I just did it in here with headphones, and it sounded incredible. The space, incredible. The only thing I would say is that no matter what, to me at least, I don't know if you agree, even a piano and a guitar, etc., and strings, it does change the sound slightly.
Oh, yeah. It does. But now, here's the thing with that. It does change the sound.
Yeah.
But what you can do, and I don't mind discussing this on camera, is you can... The problem you got is if you have an object, let's say hard left and right, in the Atmos space, and you turn that to mid.
Yes.
Right? It can sound great there, right? But if you moved it here a little bit further to the back of the room, and now it doesn't sound great. So you can find the binaural near, mid, or far what is right for the sound, and then you can find the space in the room where that sound sounds best. So then it doesn't sound weird. And what you can do is then just flick A to B,
right,
and you'll hear zero difference.
Oh, okay.
But zero difference in the way that it's being changed. You'll hear the difference of it. Oh, it sounds bigger. It sounds more kind of immersive, let's say. But the kind of fundamentals of that sound don't change.
Right.
Whereas if you stuck it at the back of the room, put it on far, and then switch, it's a massive change.
Yeah.
So certain sounds don't sound good in certain positions in the room when you're referring to like the binaural settings that you're applying. So one thing to do is what you can do is you can find where that sweet spot is in the room for that sound, and you can just put it there, and then you don't have that change in sound.
So with that in mind, would you recommend to people dabbling in Atmos mixing for their stereo mixes, would you recommend they just stick with 100% pure stereo, or would you recommend that they do binaural fold downs, but they're very selective what they put where?
Right. If you asked me a year and a half ago, I'd say yes. Yes to binaural fold downs.
Right.
Because you can get a much better, well, not a much better sound, you can get a little bit more of an immersive sound. If you ask me now, I'd say I wouldn't bother.
Right.
Because I'd concentrate on getting the stereo mix the best it can possibly be.
Yeah.
And then take that stereo mix into an Atmos session to then turn it into Atmos.
Yeah.
I find the problem you have is there is a slight trade-off in, let's say, sound quality when doing a binaural fold down. And it can be done, so there isn't as much of a trade-off, but there is a trade-off. And I think I'd prefer, personally, there to be you to get the best sound possible from the stereo master working in stereo. I think if it's designed for playback in stereo, then you should be mixing in stereo. Right,
that makes sense. So when you do that, I'm assuming obviously you must be just using your front two speakers to monitor on when you're mixing in stereo.
Yeah, so when I'm mixing in stereo, I'm basically using my left and rights with my subs.
Okay. And when you mix in Atmos, bearing in mind what we said at the beginning, that most consumers do not have your system to listen back on.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know if cars are now doing Atmos. Are they at all?
Yeah, Mercedes
are they doing Atmos?
Yeah, I
but
think
again,
there's quite a few more.
You got to be quite rich to get that kind of car. Maybe at the moment. So bearing in mind that a lot of consumers AirPods in the gym or whatever, do you check your mixes on headphones?
Yeah.
Oh, you do every time.
I've got a nice purple pair.
Okay.
Of Apple Maxes. You've actually got my old.
I bought your old ones off you. Yeah. Oh, really? You got the same ones again in the end?
Yeah.
Because you bought like £5,000 worth of headphones. Like you bought. Are you not using that anymore?
No, it weren't 5,000.
Something. It was a lot.
About 1,500 quid.
Oh, maybe.
For them headphones. Yeah. Yes. Now the reasoning for that is a simple one, and that is that when you're listening to a perfect Atmos playback through Apple Music, you have to be using. It's partly down to the headphones as well,
right?
So you could listen to Atmos on Apple Music wearing, I don't know, just a pair of standard headphones. Doesn't sound the same,
right? So there's some technology in our AirPod Maxes.
Yeah.
That makes it interesting, though, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we've only got 2 ear holes.
Yeah, it's crazy. Now I've got a company coming over tomorrow. I think it's Flare Audio. Now their claim is that they've got these kind of in-ear things you put in your ear, right? And then you put normal headphones over the top, and they're like reflections. So the audio plays. And now the reason I got them over was because I was scrolling through Facebook. I saw an advert, and it was like I think it was Fabio and Groove Rider, and they were going, "Wow, this is amazing." And I looked at it and I went, "Are you telling the truth?
Yeah.
Or are you just saying that?"
Selling something.
So I got in touch with him and I said, "Look, I am very honest. I create a lot of content on YouTube and online, and if these are rubbish and I put them on and they're like, what are these people on about? I'm going to show that,
of course.
But if they're wow, I'm gonna literally go, wow, that's impressive." And I said to him as well, he's coming from someone who is very experienced with Atmos, working with it every day in an Atmos room. I'm going to know whether this is rubbish or not.
Are they going to send you a pair?
No, they're coming over.
Oh, they're coming over.
Coming over tomorrow, and they're sitting in the room. And to be fair to them, after saying all that, they were like, "Yeah, we'll come over. We want you to hear."
They're confident in their.
So they're confident.
Interesting.
So I'm very open to experiencing something I think will actually be really good.
Yeah. Interesting.
So it'll be an interesting video. I'm going to record the session while they're there.
Yeah, good.
And it's interesting tech.
Yeah, very interesting. And just to end on this topic, where do you see, let's say in 5 years from now, where do you see the future of Atmos? Do you think like every car pretty much will have it, and
I don't think every car. I don't think every car will have it, because I can't imagine. It's cool in a car. But imagine like listening to, I don't know, some Biggie Small stuff with gunshots. What? You know what I mean?
The thing is though, I remember the first time I ever went into your studio when you had Atmos there.
Yeah.
And I listened to one of my tracks because you kindly mixed one of my tracks. Do you remember? I think the first one, I think that from what I remember, correct me if I'm wrong.
It was that piano one with Joe.
That I did with Joe called Phone.
That's it.
And it was which I produced, and it was the very, very first Atmos mix you did, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. And obviously, I experienced it. It made tears roll down my. It was so incredible to hear all those beautiful strings and piano.
Yeah, that was a good track to start working on.
And the way you did on Joe's voice. You used the reverb, cinematic rooms reverb. So the reverb was everywhere, and his voice was there.
You don't get that experience with headphones.
Nowhere near.
So going back to the whole reasoning for this conversation is, you wouldn't get that from headphones.
No, exactly. But what I'm asking now is, where do you think in 5 years' time more people will have a sort of home system like yours, and will it be like
not
yours?
Like mine?
No,
because look, the thing with a system like mine is the footprint of it is massive.
Yeah, it is.
You know, it's a whole room.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not logical.
No.
You're going to have sound bars and you're going to have smaller speakers. You know, there's no reason why in the future it's not going to get to the point where you're going to have really small footprints on speakers. They're going to be tiny and they're going to be really good.
Yeah.
You know, I was talking with PMC recently, and I asked them, where do you think the kind of the speaker industry is going? And they said, well, we've spent so long going from small speakers, really big speakers, and getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it can't go much further in terms of size. And he said, well, I think it will go full circle, and we'll end up trying to get this sound that we're getting out of these massive speakers into this speaker down here.
Is that possible though? I mean, isn't it a physical?
Who knows what technology can bring? You know, who'd have thought that a phone could now be like, you could get a phone. You can get a phone into a watch.
You can get a phone into a watch, but for example, I don't think no matter how good the phone is, it's never going to sound good as the speaker itself.
Yeah. But so yeah. But there might be, I don't know. I'm no speaker expert.
No.
So,
but they're getting smaller, basically.
Yeah, I would say what's possible and where the future goes with this is being able to get systems into front rooms and into general houses and into the general public's hand for a more affordable rate. Yeah. Now, when we think about things like, I don't know, if you think about something that costs a lot years and years ago,
like home theatre systems.
Yeah, but like a home theatre system, if you were, let's say a TV is a prime example of this. Now, if you went back 10, 15 years ago, a 42-inch plasma TV, it's like 3, 4, 5 grand.
Oh, yeah.
Now you pick one up for 200 quid, 42-inch. So it's minor.
Yeah.
You know, that's the difference. And that's where I kind of see these sort of sound bars going, in the sense that the cost of them will be a lot lower.
Yeah.
So there will be more of you got things like TVs now that have built-in, like my TV at home has built-in Atmos. It's got like 15 speakers in it that project it around the room.
When you say project around the room, though, does it not have to be physically behind you?
Well, what it does is it scans the room. It's really clever. It scans the room.
Yeah.
And you'll see it kind of scan the room on the screen, and then it will project the audio to bounce off walls and stuff. Yeah. And then I've got 2 speakers on the back wall, 2 speakers on the side wall, and they have upward firing speakers as well, and then a sound bar underneath that's got about 10, 15 speakers in it. Wow. And they all fire everywhere. But like, I can watch a movie and it's like
really
all around me. It's brilliant.
That's interesting.
And it's nowhere near as good as I think it's about 20 odd channel, 20, 30 channel system that's in my front room.
Wow.
And it's not massively expensive. I think I paid, like, not including the TV, but like the system's probably about $1,000.
Wow.
But that can over the years come right down. So it's nowhere near as good as what I've got, and you're not going to want to sit there and mix on it.
No.
But from a listener perspective, you know, there's no reason that everyone won't have an Atmos system in their house. It just won't be massive. So like it could be an Alexa, like an Amazon Alexa, or Google one speaker that they have. There's no reason that speaker can't
reflect,
ping sound from all angles. There's no reason that it can't be put on the ceiling.
You know what you could do? Maybe you could. I wonder if you could have like 5 Alexas, and they all talk to each other, kind of thing. So you play one song through Alexa, and maybe the one behind you, you know, it could be quite interesting.
There's all sorts. All of this is the way technology will kind of go.
Yeah, of course.
And I think it will go there.
Yeah.
I don't think Atmos isn't going away.
It's not going away.
It's very much something that's here to stay, and it's not a fad. It's not like 5.1. You know, stereo's still very much an integral part of music, because you're not going to get Atmos clubs. There are a few, but
I mean,
say
it
that.
makes sense though.
Yeah, but it'll be fun.
How cool is that? Imagine that
Yeah.
you're in a club, listen to dance music.
Oh, and imagine if you're standing at the back of the room.
Yeah, there is that.
You can't stand in the sweet spot. That's the problem
If
with
you
it.
were in the sweet spot.
So say you're sitting
imagine
at the
that
back
going
of the
around your
room, and but imagine you go to a club. So you go to a club, and majority of clubs are mono.
They're mono, yeah.
So majority of clubs, 99.9% of clubs, mono.
Yeah.
So you go to a club, there's a speaker at the back of the room, you go to the speaker, you stand by the speaker at the back of the room, and what do you hear? The same thing you'd hear at the front speaker over there.
Yeah.
Whereas if you went to a club and you went to the back of the room in an Atmos club, it's like you're just hearing pads and stuff. It's a bit of reverb. It's like,
is that a good reason why, just in general mixing, you would mix the low end pretty much mono, the low end, like the kick drum and the bass? Is it for clubs?
Yeah, yeah. Right. Well, yeah. It's just generally you don't want the low end in stereo because
it sounds flabby and So
I mean that's a whole nother conversation.
That's a whole conversation, yeah. And so just going back to your TV, for example, with the sound bars that reflect from the back. So you do a lot of TV mixing and mastering for TV and cinema. I know that.
Yeah. Well, this is partly why I got it.
Yeah.
So I partly got it so I could listen to that.
Yeah.
And I could basically mix at studio, and then I could take that file and listen to it at home from a listener's perspective.
Yeah.
Because you can listen to music in stereo from a listener's perspective by just playing it on another pair of speakers as a reference point. But unless you're going now to a cinema or another Atmos studio, you can't listen, and even that isn't from a listener perspective. So I basically built a listener perspective at home, so I can sit and enjoy the movies that I've made and worked on from a listener perspective.
So if you, for example, were in your studio and you're doing a mix and you've got Foley and let's say, I don't know, rain or gunshot, let's call it a gunshot, and you in your studio, you put it behind, physically in those speakers behind you. If you then listen to that gunshot in your living room on your TV, even though the speaker's not physically behind you,
there are speakers though behind me.
Oh, there are.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if I was only playing through the soundbar at the front, it would basically still sound like it was from the front, but what it would be, I guess, what it's trying to do is project it, fire it to the back wall, and reflect it off the back wall. I presume that's what it's trying to. It would try and do. It's. That sort of thing, I guess, is possible, and it does sound amazing. All of that stuff.
I mean, even in headphones,
in headphones, you can hear it. You can hear. You can feel it there.
Yeah.
In the back of your skull.
The weird thing is, it's not physically there because they're just in your ears. I don't know. But
it's your brain making it up where it is.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
But I can very much pan something in a pair of Apple headphones when I'm in the room. I can pan it to a specific position in the room where it would be playing out of that speaker, and I can physically hear it in the back of my head there.
Do you find, because you remember I asked you earlier and you said, yes, you do always check Atmos mixes on your Air Maxes. Mm-hmm. Do you find that you have to change a lot? No. Right, okay.
But that's part of experience.
Right.
Like I know how to make it sound great in Atmos and how to sound great.
So what you're saying is if it sounds great in your Atmos room, it's got to sound great to the consumer on headphones.
Yeah, pretty much. But then you've always got a reference. Check. Okay. There's very, very, very few times I've put those headphones on, checked it through, referenced it, and gone, oh God, that sounds bad.
Right.
It always.
It's very subtle.
Yeah, but it's very much a case of you can have the headphones there, have the system playing, and just kind of go, yeah, it sounds identical. Okay. It's like you can, it obviously sounds like it's in headphones, but it doesn't.
Because you want to appeal to both, you know.
Oh, massively, yeah. Right, okay. You don't want to make it sound good on one system and not good on the other. It's the same with, you don't want to make something like if you were mastering for stereo, you don't want to make it sound amazing in in a car. And then not amazing everywhere else.
No, of course.
It's like everyone goes, oh, Luke, I'm going to go outside and do the car test.
Yeah.
So, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, why are you making it sound good for your boxy old fucking Vauxhall Nova?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, absolutely.
what are you doing?
Yeah, agreed.
Like the car test, the reason the car test, and this is a whole other subject.
Yeah.
But while we're talking about it, the good thing about a car test is stick your mix on a car, go for a drive, listen to the mix, see how you feel about it whilst you're driving along. It's because it's a familiar system. And this is, the car test. It's back when people had decent systems in cars. Don't go test it on your fluid little system. It's like the majority of people, when you do the car test, and wherever it came from was because it comes from you're playing it on good systems in a car that you know really well because you spend a lot of time in a car.
Yeah.
I'm going out and do a car test in my Ford Focus or it's like my mum's car. It's like,
yeah,
what's the point?
There's no point.
Oh yeah, I've got to turn the bass up a little bit. It's not bassy enough. And then, but now it sounds right. So what you're actually testing is how inaccurate your car is.
Yeah. Not
the inaccuracies of the mix.
Exactly. No, my test is only in my studio, and that's it. One thing I used to do occasionally, and it made me change things occasionally, I would then listen on my little rubbishy iPhone speaker.
But it's no different to having mix cubes or anything like that.
That's right. Well, I used to have mix cubes, but I got rid of them, and the reason being, sometimes I listen on my phone. And I think, you know what? The kick and the bass are not really coming through enough. There's not enough.
Right. So here's what it's good for.
Yeah.
It's doing those sorts of tests.
Yeah.
You now notice something. Mm. It pulls your brain towards something. Mm. It's like, have you ever had a situation where you've got you'll be mixing a track, and then you can't hear. Let's say you can't hear a bongo that's very much underneath. Solo it. You listen to the bongo, unsolo it. Oh, now I can hear it clearly.
Yeah.
All the time.
Because you notice,
Because you notice it. You're resetting your brain to hear it. So those sorts of things are really good for listening to a tinny little pair of speakers, listening to it on that. Not necessarily judging the bass, but can I hear the kind of lower mids of that bass? Can I hear it if someone was playing it on this tinny little speaker? Where are the hi-hats? Oh, they're way too sharp and way too bright. Now when we go back into the studio, let's listen. Oh, maybe they are actually too bright because now you're focused in on that.
You know what I do now, though, to save having to do that? And I very rarely even do that now because I just know. But I've got a little plug-in called
Mix Checker
Pro.
Yeah,
very useful. So I rarely use it, but it is very useful. This is how I think to myself. I wonder if that bass, particularly bass, would that come? I can hear it. The sub all on my system. Would that come through on a phone? You've got it on the end of your master chain. You unbypass it. Yeah. And you can literally hear if
just remember to bypass it.
Yeah, I know. You don't want that. That would be terrible. So very useful. And for last now, and I know I kept saying this the last thing, just very last question. The platforms requiring or sometimes requiring Atmos. So we know that Apple certainly do. It's a requirement. So what are Tidal
Amazon
now?
Music.
Really?
Amazon. They're the only free. They're the free from day dot, really.
From day dot, really? I didn't know that. Yeah. Spotify?
No.
They're not.
I think the main thing with Spotify, and I'm not too sure about this, but they were going to start doing Atmos, and then they weren't, then they were, then they weren't, and I think at the moment, obviously, clearly, they're not.
They're not.
But I think either they don't believe in it as much as Apple do, because the thing with Apple is Apple have got an ulterior motive to make Atmos succeed.
Their headphones.
Well, the headphones. Right. Their whole, we fit Atmos into the new laptops, all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, true.
They want to sell more of their headphones.
Of course.
They're not cheap headphones.
No.
But it now is like, you're not just buying headphones, you're buying Apple Spatial.
Yeah.
And instantly I was like, I need an Apple Spatial headphones. So they're really pushing it because it pushes, it adds a lot of value.
Yeah.
Whereas the Spotify probably look at it as like, what's the value? Why do we want to push this? It only stands to benefit Apple.
Yeah. Also, theoretically, if you were to do a binaural mix
I
down,
knew this was coming next.
yeah, if you were to do a binaural mix down and someone listened
Yeah.
on Spotify on their normal headphones, would it not sound the same as Apple
Well,
Spatial?
binaural in a pair of headphones sounds like binaural in a pair of headphones.
Yeah.
So you could listen to binaural in a pair of headphones on YouTube.
Yeah, yeah.
So it doesn't sound like, well, it doesn't sound like Apple Spatial. It sounds like binaural. And Apple Spatial and binaural are two very different things.
But so you said, I think you just said Tidal are using
Binaural.
Mm-hmm. So that means if you give Tidal an Atmos master,
Yeah.
and
You're going to argue that if you put a binaural onto
stereo,
yes,
is
it's
it going
to
to
do
be
with the
exactly the
codec.
same? Will it not be identical?
No, I don't think it's identical because of the playback and stream, the way the streaming of the through the codec.
Right.
Yeah, I can't quote on this, but yeah, I don't think it would be the same.
Okay.
But also as well,
yeah,
is binaural. Dolby Atmos playing back binaural would play back at minus 18 LUFS.
Yes.
Whereas Spotify would play back
minus 14.
Minus 14. So
right,
there's some difference there.
In volume alone, okay.
Well, as well is the master that is actually uploaded to Spotify would be around minus 9 LUFS, minus 8 LUFS,
yeah,
and then the volume would just be reduced to minus 14 LUFS. So we have kind of a normalized playback across the whole platform. Whereas Dolby Atmos has never been limited, has never been compressed in the same way you would in a stereo master, has more dynamics. It actually ends up sounds better because it has a full dynamic range.
I would like to see, though, Dolby Atmos and the various companies that make Dolby rendering a thing. I'd like to see them implement mastering tools into their software.
It's very easy to do.
Yeah, well, there was one company that started doing it.
What is it? Fiedler Audio?
Yeah, Fiedler Audio. I've got their software. I tend not to use it. I tend to use the built-in Logic software. I wasn't using that at first because it was so many things wrong with it, but they've fixed it now. But I do have the Fiedler, and it's good. The Fiedler, they have a mastering tool in there called... can't remember what it is, but it's a compressor. Yeah, and it's fantastic.
I feel like it was something like Opus or something.
Not Opus. It was
something along those.
Get a G, I think.
Gravity.
Gravitas. We got there in the end.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. It's absolutely brilliant. And I know they got more coming. They won't say what. But I sometimes speak to the guy. His name is Thomas Fiedler. Lovely guy, German guy. And so I'd like to see that implemented, particularly in the Logic version for me. And I'm sure you would too. But because I don't see why it has to be minus 18 necessarily, but it'll be good to have limiting and just the same as stereo. So just to close, one final question. In your opinion, when you're listening to Apple Music, to an Atmos master with your headphones, and when you're listening to Tidal to where they're transmitting a Dolby Atmos master,
which do I prefer?
Which do you prefer, if any?
Apple Spatial.
Really?
And I never used to say that.
Right, interesting.
You'll know as well. I've always said that.
Is there? Can you describe why, or is it just a thing that you prefer?
It's to do with the Apple Max headphones. It's to do with the headphones.
Oh, it's the headphones, is it? Right, interesting. So
you listen to the same Apple Spatial mix or master.
With normal headphones.
Normal headphones sounds rubbish.
Oh, really?
Sounds terrible.
Right. Okay.
But you listen to it with Apple Max, it sounds unbelievable.
Oh, right, okay.
I'll have to show you when you're round at mine.
Yeah.
Really does sound amazing.
Well, I've got the same headphones, remember?
Yeah, but you can listen. What I've got is the Apple renderer, Apple codec. So basically, I'm
actually me too on Logic. It does it now. You
can.
I've never done it.
I've got a different one, which I don't know whether it's more or less accurate, but the way it sounds, the way it's basically telling you how it sounds coming from Apple, and it sounds. I've compared it, and it sounds identical,
right?
And it's the good thing, like you can in Logic, audition it in real time, so you can listen to it in real time, and I can basically have my headphones on, take them off, and it's like I mean, I'm still in the room.
Really
kind of thing.
amazing.
Yeah.
Very last thing, sorry, keep things like, because I'm ADHD, things just pop in and out of my head.
Who
all
isn't
the time.
ADHD in the music industry?
Yeah, you're right. All of us. That's why we're creative. That's another video. We can talk about that. Last thing now. So you mentioned about going back to binaural fold downs, stereo fold downs. You said it can be a little bit hit and miss when listening on headphones. It can sound better, but in a way worse. Yeah. What about listening to a binaural fold down, i.e. stereo, but binaural on speakers? Yeah. Is that always going to be miss, or can that work?
No,
as
it's not. It's not always miss. It's the same. It's the same with listening on headphones. It is generally kind of hit and miss. Right. A lot of people will tell you can't fold down to listen on speakers.
Yeah,
and you and I both know
that you can.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's either a lie for whatever reason, or they're just not. They just haven't worked out how to do it yet.
Yeah,
and we know how to do it because I've shown you and I've spoken to you about it.
Yeah.
So it is 100% possible.
Yeah,
and I've spoken to many engineers who have also worked this out, and it's not necessarily a secret, but it's not something that everybody's kind of going, oh yeah, of course you can. This is how you do it.
Well, I've seen so many YouTube videos, because as well as watching your ones,
claim that you can't do it.
They claim that you can't do it, or they claim that you can do it, and it sounded terrible because they haven't done the secret things that you said to do.
Yeah,
amazing.
Well, the funny thing is it's so obvious.
Well, it wasn't even to me. You taught me actually about all that, but it's obvious if you know how. But
it's obvious once you're shown.
Yeah, of course. Then you realise. But very, very interesting topic. Yeah, really is. All right, Paul. Well, look, lovely talking to you as usual.
It's all good.
Speak soon.